yeah.
Alright, welcome to the Gamer Profile Show. I am J. Lamark, and today we are profiling the Omega Imperative, and we are here with the dual mics, Mike Bonafede and Mike Lamark. Thanks for joining us today on the show.
Very welcome.
So, one of the things that's really cool is because, of course, Obsolete Gamer is a classic gaming website, and you guys like classic gaming. I was looking over your bios, and both of you guys have a classic gaming background. And one thing about gamer profiles is, of course, we're going to get to your game and the Kickstarter and everything, but we like to talk about the history of, like what you guys started out with. So, of course, this has that retro feel to it. We're showing the trailer and everything on your Kickstarter site. But can you tell us a little bit about just, growing up and the kind of games that you got into and what you liked playing when you were growing up?
Sure, yeah. So, I've been playing, my father had an Atari, and a whole bunch of games for it, and I remember finding that and just playing them, and then, the Nintendo had already been out since I had been born, because I was born that year. But I didn't have one for a while until I found out about it, and I remember getting the thing that really brought me into that. I was a big fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the Turtles 2 game, the arcade game. I saw that, and I'm like, I must have that. That's when we ended up getting the Nintendo to start playing that. So yeah, I go all the way back even before my time to the Atari days, and I played the games before my time up to that point, and then started on Nintendo. So it was interesting. I've got that kind of background there. I like the offbeat obscure titles. I like good old River City Ransom, and the Guardian Legend, which our game is mainly based off of. It's a mixture of two genres, and that was what really inspired this game. I've always wanted to make a game like that, and this project is a realization of that dream, that goal.
I guess I'll do it like Mike B. Mike L. So, Mike L., I know in your bio said that you were playing Atari 2600 since you were 2. I mean, what games were you playing back then? I remember when I first got my hands on the 2600, I was playing Combat, and it was really fun because you had the tanks for the first couple of chapters, and then you had the planes. What were the games that you were playing on the 2600?
Yeah, before I can even remember, I had the Atari, and I think one of my first memories was playing Pac-Man, the Pac-Man port that was terrible on the 2600.
Yeah.
That was one of the first games I ever played, I think. And the Ghostbusters game, which also was pretty bad, but I still remember it from when I was a little kid. And yeah, so a few years after that, I got a Nintendo Entertainment System. Mario Brothers, Mega Man, River City Ransom, like Mike said, I love that game. Guardian Legend, of course, too. Yeah, and then I went from Nintendo, I went to Sega Genesis. Unfortunately, I didn't have a Super Nintendo when I was a kid, but I wish I did. So many great games on Super Nintendo, too. and then PlayStation 1, so on and so forth. But yeah, definitely in the 8-bit and 16-bit era, it was all about Mega Man, Mario, Zelda, Mortal Kombat, you know, all that stuff.
So how does one make that transition from, playing games to want to make a game? Because I mean, obviously you hear people say it'd be cool to make a game, especially nowadays you hear people always complaining about games. That's what everyone loves to do on the internet is complain. But, you guys are actually putting a game together. What do you think was it, that hit that spark inside of you to actually say, you know what, I'm actually going to do it instead of just saying it?
Well, so it's interesting. I'll kind of bounce around my timeline a bit here. I actually went to school initially as a graphic designer. I have like an art degree, but I got into the industry as a game tester, and while I was there, like I got to know some artists and designers and engineers, and I really actually identified more with the designers. And now I'll bounce back, and it makes sense because it was one of those things where all the breadcrumbs kind of led up to that point, and I'm like, oh yeah, I had this game called RPG Maker and this other game called Fighter Maker for PlayStation. And with it, I would make all kinds of games. I would make like it allows you to take little set pieces and put them together. You don't need to know any coding to do any of this. I was putting together basically like Lego building my own game, and that was an amazing feeling. And even before that, little high school story. I used to play Magic the Gathering a lot. I'm a big fan of card games. I designed a few card games in my spare time. But there was a point where we weren't allowed to have the cards anymore because of school, how schools work and so forth. I ended up taking and making my own cards on index cards. And we played our own card games, and it didn't matter because no one could take them from us because they were just index cards. I just make new ones. It's fine. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun too. So these are like the breadcrumbs that led up to that moment where like, you know what? I'm a game designer. This is what I'm gonna do.
So then after you build something and you actually had that creative spirit, there's still that aspect of putting it together. I know on Kickstarter, you know, was there that daunting task of knowing like how to put that Kickstarter together? Because that was the thing that, when I first started seeing like people put together Kickstarter projects, you see some, that fail, you see some that just go crazy. And I've talked to people that have done Kickstarter projects, and they've talked about different pitfalls and things that people have done wrong, things that they've done wrong. Was there like a guideline or steps that you either researched or you just said to yourself, hey, you know what, for this game, for our projects, I want to make sure that I don't do this, or I want to make sure that I hit these steps so that people, see this project, correctly, and that they'll want to back it?
Mike, you want to take this one?
Well, you actually set up most of the Kickstarter,
That's true.
and you were actually asking people for advice and stuff. I saw on your Facebook for what they would, stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I definitely did a lot of research. I mean, we both did a lot of research, and I remember there was a good 3-day process where all we were doing is looking at other Kickstarters and saying, okay, what are they doing, and what are they doing right, and not only what are they doing right, but what are they doing wrong, and like it's a very competitive place. We took the best things we saw from the ones that worked, like for example, making sure the big thing is making sure the rewards are there, and there's some lower ones for multiple people to join on, because that's what crowdfunding is all about. It's all about getting as many people as possible. But then also the like higher tier prestige type rewards where you get those big backers that want something real big, for their contribution. So making sure that was balanced, making sure the things like the video was to the point. I got a lot of really good advice about my initial video, made a new video and so forth, and keeping it short, keeping it to the point, keeping it action focused, and also making sure people knew where the money was going, like making sure that they knew it was going toward development costs, that it was going toward publishing platform fees and so forth, and hiring contractors as needed. to make sure the game is as good as it can possibly be. Those are all the elements that I was looking into and that we were looking into and researching in the months leading up to launching the Kickstarter.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that by saying that it is a little bit daunting to kind of think about starting a Kickstarter, because you do see a lot of Kickstarters on there that they look good, like the games look good, but they're just not meeting their goal, and you're just kind of like, you wonder why is it like that, you know what I mean? So it can be like a little bit intimidating to think about how you're going to set up your Kickstarter, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And what's really cool is, like, with this game, you're going with the classic, retro style, and that's really big, and it really makes me happy, because it's great to see that you can have really great modern games, because it's not like, you have some people that will just hate on anything new and say, oh, well, the only good games are old games. And I'm always the kind of person that's like, no, there's good stuff in there that's brand new. There's good stuff that's old. Same thing with movies. Same things with TV shows. And here you have an example where you're creating a game that's retro inspired. It has that look, but you're mixing in the elements, like you said. You have the top-down adventure, then you have the space shoot 'em up, and then you reference the Guardian Legend. And I remember that game, but not enough. And I looked up the game itself, that it came out in 1990, and I never actually played it. But can you tell us a little bit about the Mega Imperative, and like the similarities between that and what you were trying to create it, and the inspiration with the Guardian Legend?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, well,
show him Miria.
What's that?
Show him Miria in the back.
Yeah, except for it's like the wrong color because my camera's messed up.
That's the main character in the Guardian Legend, but yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, the Guardian Legend, I still remember I went to the mall with my mom, and I was like bugging her all day to buy me a new game, and the Guardian Legend was the game I picked. And I went home and played it, and it was awesome. Like, it combines what I love about Zelda with what I love about like games like 1943, and it's just so much fun. And so when making the Omega Imperative, I just wanted to kind of like recapture that feeling of like the awesome action and exploration that was combined in the Guardian Legend, and I just kind of was inspired by that. And so, I just wanted to design a game that was like going to bring that to new players, because like a lot of people don't know about the Guardian Legend, or maybe haven't experienced a game that was like multi-genre like that before. So, just kind of wanted to bring that to a new audience and put our own kind of spin on it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I came from.
Yeah, it's really cool that you can, like it said, that when you get items and upgrades, that it carries over, because that was one of the things that, especially in older games, you would upgrade your weapons, or sometimes even you would get a weapon and you're like, wow, I got this cool weapon. Next level, it's gone. You're like, wait, did he throw it away? What happened? He went to the warp zone and it disappeared. Here, it really matters, because you take it to the next level, you still have it, so it really means something. That's really cool.
Yeah, that was one of the most important parts, too, that we wanted to make sure that all the weapons and stuff that you got would be useful in both modes of gameplay, and that you would always, like, somewhere in the game be able to find a use for each of the weapons that we have in the game. So, because that's the way it was in the Guardian Legend, too. The weapons were, like, it was really important which weapons you used when, and which parts of the level you used it on, so.
It's fun hearing, the story about how Mike got the Guardian Legend. I actually got that game on a complete accident. My grandfather just like picked up and rented games for me one day, and that was one of them. He had no idea what he was doing at all. He just like, I'll grab this one and I'll grab this one, and then he just hands them to me, and I'm like, oh, okay. And I put in Guardian Legend, and it's been one of my favorite games ever since. It's just such an amazing blending, and that is the main thing, that the fact that you get two games in one, like, and they're both complete experiences from each other that come together in such a great way. That's really the essence that we're trying to capture here. You get two games in one.
And what seems really interesting as well is by doing that, and also looking at the features, the different enemy types, the different adventures, and of course just having, like you said, the two different types, top down and the shooters, that you take out the chance of having it be boring. Now, obviously, just having the time and seeing the different types of gameplay, you have a better understanding of how to design a game to make it more exciting. But even back in the day with shooters, sometimes it got repetitive back in, like in the 80s and 90s, where you'd be shooting just the same enemies over and over again, especially some of the space shooters. But now you have the combined of having the adventure, the top-down adventure, and then you have the different enemies, the upgrades and everything. So you're not bored just going level after level. You have an excitement, replayability factor in the game.
Definitely, and with regards to enemies, I'm the one doing most of the AI and combat design, and we have a really modular way of making new enemies and making them interesting. Just in both modes, different behaviors, different patterns, and so forth. So it's been really fun to design that as well.
So as far as just in classic gaming itself, do you have an opinion on why retro gaming has been able to make like a resurgence as far as people liking it? Do you think it's maybe mobile games, or is it just that you have gamers that played back in the day that are older now and still love games?
It could be that. Did you have any thoughts, Mike?
I think it's a combination of different factors, including the ones that you mentioned. I think there's a big nostalgia thing going on right now. People really are into just stuff from the 80s and 90s. But I think one of the more important things to look at for the popularity of like retro style games is like the simplicity of them. You know what I mean? They're just really easy to get into. They're usually really easy to understand, and it's not overwhelming, but it's fun. You know what I mean? And sometimes with like newer newer games, you get a little overwhelmed maybe just because there's so much choice or there's so much to do. You know what I mean? And sometimes you just want to dive into like an action game and just start mashing buttons. You know what I mean? And a lot of retro games, give you the chance to do that more easily than some newer games do.
Yeah, definitely, and like people's time, it's there's also the two sides of it. We've got a lot of new gamers that are just entering, like the Wii, for example, brought in a whole slew of new gamers, people that had never really been gamers before, into the industry to enjoy games. And for example, on the Wii U, that's really popular. Retro games are really popular on that platform, as they are, to an extent on other ones. But then also the time investment. Those people who play those retro games they're retro now. Back then, they've got busy lives and they've got things to do in their lives, and these games harken back to a time when there was a lower time investment involved. You can get more enjoyment in a shorter amount of time out of them, and I think that's a big factor as well.
So one of the things that we always ask before we let you guys go is like your favorite classic game. And I know that since you guys both played retro gaming a lot, it might be kind of hard. But maybe if you can't pick one, perhaps maybe like a top three. If you had to pick, like either your favorite or maybe top three classic games, what would they be?
Well, I know on the top of that, Chrono Trigger. Absolutely love that game. I love anything to do with time travel. I'm a big time travel buff, so that game was one of the first and best examples I know of time travel in a video game. That's my top one. For below that, I think I already named the other two, is River City Ransom and the Guardian Legend. So, that. And let's do an honorable mention. Battletoads. Everyone's got to have some Battletoads.
Even though it's super hard.
Right.
Michael, how about you?
Well, my favorite game ever actually is it's a PlayStation 1 game, so that gets a little bit closer to the modern era of gaming, but it's Final Fantasy VII. It's my #1 favorite game ever. But aside from that, I definitely have to say the original Legend of Zelda. Like, I love that game so much. I have so many good memories of playing that with my friends as a kid. It was just such a good game. And maybe go Mega Man 3. I love Mega Man 3. I mean, 2 was great too, but just something about 3. They had Proto Man in there. It was awesome.
Mega Man 3, that was a good one. Yeah, that's a tough question. Like that really is.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you played a lot. I mean, you probably went through so many games, and then it's not easy. I mean, I've had some people really, they were like, I have to get back to you, and and sometimes you may want to just say out like Mario or something like that, but then you come back and you're like, no, there was this one game that I really loved, and but those are some great games. But the game is the Mega Imperative, and you can find it on Kickstarter. Go check this game out. It's up there right now. You gotta back these games because there's a lot of people always saying, hey, we need to find these great games, especially games that are inspired by classic retro gaming. There's a lot of good games out there, but we need people to back them. So we're gonna put the links to the Kickstarter up on our site. It'll be on the YouTube page, and it'll be on our website article, so you guys will be able to find it. So I hope you guys will go and support it. But Mike B, Mike L, thanks for coming on and talking to us about the game.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Alright, we'll be back soon with another episode of the Gamer Profile Show. But until then, remember our motto, never stop gaming. See you later.